Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to an Overreaction Monday show. The Longhorns just keep on keeping on in the NCAA playoffs. Do us a solid like, comment, subscribe to the page. We do appreciate all of that stuff. And of course, this video brought to you, as every Overreaction Monday show is, by our wonderful friends over at RogueShop.com. Use that promo code OrangeBloods, get that discount. But the bottom line is, if you're looking for THC, if you're looking for CBD, so much more inside that product inventory, keep it in the family. They are Orange Bloods owned, in that if you pinch them, orange blood will spew out. That's kind of a graphic visual, but they're Longhorn fans through and through, and they want to be there for you. Let them be there for you. Mr. Richardson.
Yo.
The weekend wasn't exactly filled with like football games that we'll remember for the rest of our lives. Yet I had a good time.
Man, I did, man. I had a great time, man. It was fun watching some of the games. The conversations are interesting because there were some teams that did get their asses kicked. And so and Indiana didn't really get their butts kicked. It was a kind of a lopsided game, though.
They did. The most part. They got their butts kicked.
Okay, they got their butts kicked. SMU really got their asses handed to them. Like that was kind of bad. It was still good theater. You know,
I'd rather have it than not. That's what I found myself thinking.
100. And the thing is, Catch it. There's teams that you and I have said, like, teams will ultimately be judged if you make it to the playoffs. So if you're SMU, you're like, hey man, this is step one. You just gotta get used to playing in the cold, right? So there's that. Indiana has a chance to rebuild, and the thing is, and this is where I've kind of been all year long. Catch, at the end of the day, if you're a Texas fan, I kept saying, like, all that matters is that you win. And at the end of the day, Texas keeps doing that thing, Catch, which is, at the end of the day, where other teams are struggling, where other teams are falling, where other teams are stubbing their toes, outside of Georgia, Texas continues to win. And so we go back to Atlanta, next week to see if they can continue this surge.
Was there anything from a rewatch? Like, is there an overriding number one point now that we're, 36, 40 hours later?
I'll start with Captain Obvious, right? If Quinn can just do that for the next 3 games, Texas should probably win a national championship. Like, if he could just do that level, I think that's all Texas needs to pull off a Natty. If the run game is like that, by the way, when you had Trey Reisner coming out of high school, where was he ranked for you, by the way?
Not high enough. I really didn't have Trey ranked that high. I thought it was a little bit of a tweener between a running back and a wide receiver, and I thought he might have a little too much Savion Red in him, which is not, maybe a jack of all trades, but not a master of any. Mm-hmm. And he's just been light years better than I thought it would be.
There's no way you would have thought, out of everybody on Sark's roster, and I'm saying myself too, right? So this is not a Catch thing. I wouldn't have said, who would be the 1,000-yard back this season? Raise your hand if you had Trey Reisner on your bingo card, right? That's not what I would have thought. And Catch has somehow disappeared. What happened to you?
Oh, don't worry about me. I'm just pushing buttons.
You're trying to get rid of that damn thing on the screen is what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, I hit the hide button and it hit me all right.
It hides you. Like, I did it before. That's why I knew exactly what happened. It's annoying. I don't know what's going on with Restream. This Texas team is who we thought they were. And they continue to do incredibly well. And I think they've been able to, if there's an overreaction, Catch, that I have on this Monday, I don't know how many teams can beat Texas that's remaining. And I know Georgia was able to do it with a backup quarterback in the second game. So I get that. But you and I both know, Catch, when the backups come in, they often have that string of luck. And then when the team has some film and has some time to prepare, it's a little bit harder. I just don't know who's left that I would say that team is the team that's going to be Texas's kryptonite going forward.
Well, I think the Ohio State team that showed up on Saturday, which, they're a little bit like Georgia. When you get the good version of Ohio State, it feels like you should take a picture because you might need it just to remember until the next time you see it. But that version of Ohio State was really good. I feel bad for Oregon in that you're the number one team. You won the Big Ten in year one, and your reward for being the number one seed is that version of Ohio State. The bracket breakdown is kind of the bracket breakdown. But if you're the Longhorns, I actually weirdly kind of come away from it almost feels very patronizing towards Clemson, but they were a really nice little dress rehearsal for Texas in that they will see better quarterback play one way or the other once they get through Arizona State. No offense. But either Oregon and or Ohio State, like they're going to bring a very capable quarterback to the table. And Texas really hadn't played many of those this season. And I thought Cade Klubnik, as somebody I've watched all season long, I think I've watched every single game that Klubnik has played this season. I think that was as good as he's looked. From a passing standpoint, there weren't many games I came away thinking, oh man, he's on it today. He was on Saturday. He was making legit NFL level throws. They had more sustained drives than I kind of thought they would. And then at the same time, they didn't. It's kind of important to remember that Texas was up by 28 at one point in that game. And just, it was kind of a big blowout. And then Clemson makes it interesting, but never so interesting that it was very much like the Vanderbilt game where it was like, well, it was a 7-point game, but it could have been 17. And you kind of look at that here. I think Texas will have better off having played that Clemson game against either Oregon or Ohio State. Those two teams will be capable. And now that they know they can play a guy who's on it a little bit and capable and still kind of be easily the better side. I think even though they got some grill marks on them from that game, I think that they're better off having played it.
Now, I would totally agree. I'll be honest with you. Huge Cade Klubnik fan in high school. Haven't loved him in college. Just haven't. That was, and I can't say I've watched as many Clemson games. I mean, I watched the season opener, and that the whole team played bad. I've seen spots here and there. I've seen another game or so. That's the first time I looked at him and thought to myself, that guy can play in the NFL. Like legit. I wouldn't say play. Start in the NFL. I won't even say play. That was the first time I saw that from him. I walked away and said, do these guys practice one-handed catches in practice? Because the ball placement was such, it was just a string of it, right? It was just great ball placement, great one-handed catches. They looked fantastic, and to get that level of quarterback play, I don't know. I know you said, you talked about Ohio State. I mean, we all know firsthand what Dylan Gabriel can do. But to know that this defense was still able to kind of withstand some of those blows and still shut it down when they need to still get that stop on 3rd and 4th. I don't know how many times, Catch, that we've seen this defense stop a team on 4th and short this year. It didn't happen against A&M. I think also just a couple of weeks ago, they had a key stop against A&M from, I'm correct, goal line. Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah, that was the big Ethan Burke stop.
Yeah, I'm it's all starting to run together, getting a little older, but we've seen this, from this defense multiple times this year. And so we just know that you can give this defense a good shot. And I tell you what, it's almost like you almost need the early part of the defense. You just know they're going to adjust somehow, some way. That was only the second time they've been scored on, I believe, in the opening drive. But if you're telling me that there's going to be a quarterback remaining that plays as good as Klubnik played on this past Saturday, then I have confidence that this Texas defense can handle it. Because they didn't win by luck, Catch. It wasn't like some fluky thing happened where it was a fumble and they were able to return it and some luck fell. No, they were the better team. We know that. And so
I just think that Texas at some point is going to get themselves into, I don't know, like a fist fight type of game that when they get to the semis, and I think this is true of every team. I just, those games start turning into kind of 50-50 affairs. And I think Texas, there's no team that Texas needs to fear, but not by any stretch of the imagination. I think Georgia's their worst matchup. And so I wonder, well, what does that look like if you play a baby Georgia? And look, I think we'll get a version of that this weekend. Georgia will have its hands full with Notre Dame. It is not a good thing that Georgia. I think when the injury first occurred, there was a real sense of, okay, well, they've got 3 weeks to get Gunnar Stockton ready to go. They'll be okay. It's Georgia. They'll roll this guy into the lineup. It'll be perfectly fine. Georgia will be Georgia. The closer that game gets, the more I'm like, damn, they got to play that Notre Dame with a guy who's never started before, ever, that they got to get him ready in practice, huh? Okay. I feel like it is not a good thing to be Georgia and asking your backup quarterback to come in now and to have to lead the way. It really did feel like even on the Saturday, once you knew that Texas and Penn State were going to get those cush number 5 and number 6 seeds, it felt like with Georgia losing Carson Beck, for all the criticism, that guy at least has played in big games before.
Yes.
Did you win the battle but lose the war? As Texas gets ready to go into the Arizona State game, there are worse spots for them to be in than having to play Ohio State this weekend. Oregon falls into that. Georgia, they don't have Arizona State or Boise, and it just felt like coming out of this weekend, it was like, man, there are 6 really good teams, I think, and then there are 2 guppies. And you'd rather have a guppy this weekend than one of those teams that I think is capable of getting you into a fist fight. That was the one thing that stood out to me this weekend. It was like, well, Penn State wouldn't bother you that much, and neither does Notre Dame to a certain extent. You feel like you can win those games. Those are winnable games. But I could see both of those games in a champion, and that would be national championship. I could see where just first 1 to 16 wins the game. And at that point, it's probably 55-45 Texas. I like their chances of winning these types of games, but they're not 50-50 games because they're not. They're very losable just as they are winnable.
The thing is, Catch, what's fascinating about Georgia to me is that Georgia's best games this season really have been against Texas and Clemson. And outside of that, they've been slightly above average. It's a crazy thing to say. I know it sounds sacrilegious, but the Georgia team that barely beats Kentucky, right? They lose to Alabama, right? They were 41-31 with Mississippi State. Mississippi State gave this team a game. They lost against Ole Miss. They had to go to 8 overtimes to beat Georgia Tech. It's a weird thing. If you're telling me Georgia's facing Texas, I know exactly what to expect. And I feel like when Georgia's facing any other team not named Texas, I feel like it's a shoulder shrug to me, Cass. So if you're telling me that's how I feel. Thank you, Tyler. I asked him to upload a bracket, so maybe we can put it on the screen catch, so we can just kind of talk about it. And you're telling me that that's what this Georgia team that I've shoulder shrugged outside of Texas. Now you're telling me they're playing with a backup quarterback. I'm like double shoulder shrugging this. Like it'll be interesting to see, but it's hard for me to be sold 100% on Georgia unless they're facing Texas. That's the only team I see them say, and I'm like, ooh, I don't think you want those problems.
I mean, styles make fights, and it's why if you're Texas, man, that's why you wanted Georgia on the other side of the bracket. Let somebody else take care of them. It's okay if at the end of this, they won't put an asterisk on any championship that doesn't have Georgia as part of the roadkill. Like if Notre Dame takes them out, cool. One less headache, one less problem. And I think that, if you're Texas, and I don't think you want to play Georgia. I think like you said, we know what that looks like. I don't have any reason to believe that if in a third game, physically it looks a lot different. But I think if you're Texas, look at that's the prettiest graphic I've ever seen.
It really is nice and clean, isn't it?
It is. It's very pretty and color coded and everything.
I just in case people didn't have it, catch or didn't see, they didn't know what the quarterfinals look like. I just wanted to make sure they can see what it looks like in where Texas would be next. And I'm pretty sure Texas, they pull it off against Arizona State. I think they're in the Cotton Bowl, right? Catch more than likely. Yep. Cotton Bowl, and so
Atlanta, Dallas, Atlanta, if it goes out that way.
And then of course you see the other side with Georgia. I think you're right about Notre Dame though, Catch. Notre Dame is playing pretty good ball right now.
I mean, Georgia will not be able to run away from Notre Dame and vice versa. So we're going to get into the final 15 minutes of that game, and it'll just be white knuckle tension the entire time. And I think that, a matchup the next weekend with Penn State probably looks really very similar. I think that Georgia, they get the worst quarterback situation of any of the teams left. That's not an enviable position to be in. So it's just that simple. Like if you were Texas, and consequently, if it was, look, and I thought about this because of who the backup quarterback is, but this is when you want Quinn Ewers. This is why you've paid all those dues 3 full seasons in. We're at the back end of season number 3. This is why you start that guy. All those games get to a moment like this where it's not too big. The moment actually fits just well. It's one thing you'd always say about Quinn. It never has felt like the road moments or the Texas OU game or any of those games have ever been too big for him. Like he's always been kind of dialed in those moments. You don't know that about Georgia. They'll find out. And to have to figure it out 3 straight times in neutral site games against good teams. Texas, on a 1 to 10 scale, what's the worry meter for you at Arizona State?
If their starting receiver is not going to play, and I know he's hinting towards that he might, but that's their only real offensive weapon. 2, maybe 3. If I need to be a little, all right.
What has to happen in order for this game to be dangerous for Texas? What has to happen?
It has to be the ultimate offensive meltdown. I mean, it's got to be turnovers. I need running backs that got to fumble the ball. There's got to be some interceptions. They've got to have a special teams. It's got to be something like that. Like for Arizona State to beat them, it's got to be something to that effect.
I just, this is a pretty good Arizona State team. They're not They bring nothing to the table that Texas needs, I think, to be overly concerned about. If you're the class of this competition, like I think Texas thinks it is, it wants to be playing for a national championship, then this is just part of the roadkill that gets in your way. It's like, oh, was that a snake that was in the road? Like, I don't know. I was driving so fast, I didn't stop. We ran over that thing. Like, that's what Arizona State's got to be this weekend. And then you get to the semifinals, and then nobody can avoid anybody anymore. It's all big time football. But I think if you're Texas, I think the biggest thing for me is be smart with Isaiah Bond. Like, he was in street clothes. There wasn't any real like, well, we're going to work him out before the game. No, I think they knew he needed to sit. I think you've got to be able to win this game without Isaiah Bond. And you just need to say, get on the other side of January, Anwar, and like, let's see if we can get you to an Oregon-Ohio State game. And then either you can go or you can't go. But like I think they've got a luxury with getting some guys right. I think even a guy like Cam Williams, depending on how that MRI comes back, you're okay. If you needed him to sit out a week and get it all back, they're good enough. And I thought that was a real standout moment from Saturday night, was that they actually did have a lot of guys out of the lineup on the offensive side of the ball. And no matter who had to come into the game, they made it work. And it gives you confidence that in a matchup against Arizona State, that if they've got to go with Kelvin Banks on one side and Trevor Gooseby on the other, okay, like that's what you've got to do. That they're lucky or fortunate, or however you want to frame it, to, I think they may not be 4 deep at every position, but it feels like they're just deep enough at every position. It just feels like they should be okay this week.
Catch, we'll go ahead and knock out Roger's super chat here. He says the Sark gets rid of overly cute play calls and Quinn plays the way he played, we waltz into the semis and probably the finals.
I don't agree with that. I don't think there's waltz into the semifinals. Yes, probably the finals. Let's put some respect on Oregon and or Ohio State. Like that's one of the big boy kind of 50-50 games coming in that I'm talking about. Like, you can absolutely win that, but waltz into the finals? Texas didn't completely waltz into the quarterfinals. I mean, Clemson made them work for it a little bit. It was a one-possession game in the fourth quarter, and Texas closes that out. But waltz makes it sound like it ain't nothing but a thing, and I don't know if it's quite that.
Totally get that. All right, Catch. Can I try to cheer you up?
We're gonna talk Liverpool?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna do something. I want to try to cheer you up. I've known you long enough to know. You
think I need cheering up? What's wrong with me today?
Yeah. I can tell you need some cheering up. I can tell. I've worked with you. I am. No, I don't. I was going to say I am your work husband, but no, I worked with you long enough to know that you're in okay mood right now, but you're not yourself. So let's do this, because I had this.
I'm not myself, okay?
Look, I can
no, hey, I'm okay. I'm going right with it.
You didn't do this on in your column on Sunday, but let's do some Santa Catch. I'm going to name out some Texas coaches and players, and Santa Catch gets to give them a gift this holiday season.
Okay.
All right. And it could be anything Santa Catch wants to do. And it could be anything. It could be a literal gift, or it could be something figuratively from a football perspective.
Okay.
What are you going to give Steve Sarkisian, Santa Catch?
I'm going to give him an unbreakable starting quarterback.
Oof.
Quinn Ewers just can't be broken. He is for the next 3 games stout and unbreakable and ready to be a vehicle for Steve Sarkisian's offense.
If the Quinn we saw on Saturday good enough with this defense to win the next 3?
Yes, I would like the nitpick of Saturday's game. If there's a baby nitpick, is it? I think they took their foot off the gas on offense a little bit. That I would have on a day when Quinn I thought was playing really well. I mean, I think that first half is as good as we've seen outside of the Florida game since September. So it was a high level of play. I would like to have seen a little bit more, but they were running the ball at will and they were effectively using the passing game to draw pass interference penalties. So it is a baby nitpick, but against Ohio State and or Oregon, they'll need Quinn a full 4 quarters. And he was in the groove a little bit. I would like to have seen a little bit more let Quinn be in the groove, but it's a real nitpick when it's like, you didn't win in the style that I wanted you to win enough. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be that guy, but I would have liked to have seen just a smidge more Quinn in the second half, just to be like, oh yeah, all 4 quarters, totally badass. That's great when that happens.
Okay, so that would probably parallel with what you would give Quinn as well, right? So then if that parallels with Quinn, then what would Santa Catch give Arch?
I mean, what does Arch need? Arch, I would say, at the beginning of the season, patience, but we're at the end of the road. This is whatever it is that he's doing. And honestly, take this. This is what I'm giving to Arch. I'm taking the Arch package out. No more. It's my gift to Arch.
Yeah.
Because, I'm just kind of a little bit tired of the battering ram thing. That's not what he is.
No.
And there's going to be a day in a couple of years from now when we look back on this and go, oh, God. Remember when they were doing this with him? And now he's the number 1 pick in the draft. Like, just because what I'm giving Arch is there's no injuries if he's not running like a battering ram into a wall. So no more of that.
Yeah, it's this Tim Tebow kind of package thing, but at least Tebow would throw the ball out the package. Yeah, we've never looked at Arch like Tyrone Swoops as like, man, that's the guy that you have to – that's the best way to do a 16-wheeler package as opposed to an 18-wheeler package. So I'm with you. I don't love it. If you're going to do it, let him throw every once in a while, but if you're not going to let him throw – I felt bad for him when he fumbled too at the end catch. That's just like, if there ever was a let's just go ahead and put an RIP on that package, I thought that's where that fumble was it for me.
It's not what he does best. It's like in a year from now, they're not going to be doing that a lot. No. And you'll be asking questions like, Sark, have you considered going back to more like power football like you were using with Arch? And he's going to be like, man, trying to get my quarterback killed? No. We do not want to be running our starting quarterback into a wall like a battering ram for most of the season. Eventually, it's going to be sacrilegious that was a thing. But somehow, for about 15 minutes, like Crocs, they just turn into a thing.
Santa Catch, Kyle Flood's on the list. What would you give Kyle?
I would give him someone to swipe right on him. I want him to be able to go, oh, someone likes me. And then it's like, oh, that's a starting right tackle for next season who's got 25 starts under his belt and projects as a future NFL player. All you got to do, coach, just swipe in the same direction. You ain't got to do nothing. Just do what that person's already done for you.
Yeah.
And then he could just have a player. No, on a serious note, boy, I thought he got it on Saturday. It's no insignificant thing that Cam Williams and Jake Majors were both missing from that game in the second half when Texas kind of imposed its will. That meant moving Hayden Connor from right guard to center. It meant putting Cole Hudson in at left guard. You're having to put Trevor Gooseby over on the right side, which doesn't have to be a huge thing, but is for some players. That's a lot of movement around that 60% of your starting offensive line being in a different spot than they were when the game started. And it just didn't matter. Like in the fourth quarter, on that Jaden Blue 77-yard touchdown run, nobody stopped and went, whoa. No, this isn't possible because Jake and Cam aren't in the game. Like, no, they just kind of did their thing. And I think that I probably wouldn't have guessed that, Anwar, if you'd said before the game, hey, catch, fourth quarter comes around, it's going to be a one-possession game, and this is the offensive line lineup. I don't know that I would have thought that they just were going to run the ball at will. So kudos to those guys. I think I probably have more doubt than I don't. And those guys like cram that doubt right up, where. Like they really performed quite admirably given the circumstances.
Yeah, the one thing I walk away from this weekend, Catch, thinking is that Sark's got some good coaches on his staff. Like they're really good at developing guys, because when we look at the injuries that have happened, whether it's preseason, whether it's in season, whether it was on Saturday, they've had a lot of significant injuries that derails most teams at any point. Losing two running backs before the season, losing your quarterback in the season, your starting left tackle in the season, right? Cam Williams, Jake Majors, like these are things that, Derek Williams got lost. Like there's a list of stuff that you would say that's it for most teams. And this staff really has done a great job in the offseason of getting guys ready to play, where, that cliche of next man up, when it's usually the next man up kind of sucks. And it's literally, you feel like, Catch, if someone goes out, Trey Weiser is probably the fifth running back, wasn't even on the depth chart really as a running back. It's a 1,000-yard rusher. But then I go back to Kyle Flood, subject at hand, right? Offensive line is a hard position to have guys just step in and excel. Like usually there's a drop off. Like usually the next guy comes in and it's just like, golly, this guy's about to get abused. Doesn't happen. Gooseby comes in. We've never seen that happen. We've seen the other guys have come in on Saturday, and they just were just picked up the pace. So kudos to Kyle Flood. I thought you were going to say swipe right as far as somebody actually offer him a head coaching position. That's why I thought you were headed with that one.
No, I think he's where he probably needs to be. I think it's also there. So what do we learn out of flat out necessity from Saturday? Well, we learned that Trevor Gooseby is the third tackle. That one, if they need it left or they need it right, Trevor Gooseby is the preferred option. There's a world out there where it's like, okay, well, Brandon Baker, you're the next guy up because you're you line up at right tackle more times than not with that second string offensive line. And they were like, nope, Gooseby's the guy. It makes me think that Trevor Gooseby is, from a value standpoint going into next season, he's a top 5 most valuable guy in the program, because whatever the answers are at tackle next year, he's part of them.
Yeah.
You can play him either way. So if you could go find somebody in the portal that's a badass, you could play him on either side. I think Trevor Gooseby's been mostly exceptional so far. And then I thought,
by the way, do they have to money whip him in the offseason?
I mean, if I'm him, I'm probably just saying, yo, can I just get what Brandon Baker's getting? I'm not trying to be picky. Pay me what my fellow backup tackle is making. And then you ain't got to worry about me saying a damn thing, Mr. Richard.
Do I want what the guy who I'm ahead of is making? Or can I just say, I am kind of ahead of him on the depth chart. Can I get a little bit more than him? Do I need to be equal? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the low bar. Like, to me, that's a discount.
Oh, hey, if Trevor Gooseby has an actual agent watching the show right now, he's knocking things over, spitting coffee out. What are you doing, Catch? We have so much more leverage than that.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting that with a center injury, because we've talked about what are they going to do next year? Is it Connor Robertson? Is it Daniel Cruz coming up as a redshirt freshman, not really having played at all? That they had an injury with Majors and preferred to move Connor to disrupt 3 positions instead of just the 2, your right tackle and your center. It tells us, okay, well, they don't really think they've got a backup center. The backup center is the starting left guard, and they'll move the swing guy in at guard if they need to, but they're, I wonder, would Cole Hudson be the center? How would they have those pieces maneuvered? It does tell us, I think, a little bit about going into next season that whereas Trevor Gooseby feels pretty add water, instant player wherever you want him on either side of that tackle box. I don't know that I quite feel that way about the inside guys. And it's like, okay, so Connor's gone, and it'll be real interesting to see who comes back and who doesn't come back, because it just feels like they need another guy or two. And I don't know if that's Kyle Flood may look at what he did on this weekend and say, what are you talking about? I keep telling you guys everything will be okay. And then what happened? We got into the game. We had to put Cole Hudson in and move some pieces around. We were fine. Don't tell me that I need to go get some guys in the portal. Just trust me with my guys. Anwar, if he were to say that, all I could do is shrug my shoulders and go, fair enough.
Yeah.
Even if what I think is what I think, I would imagine he probably feels like, we'll be all right, man. My guys just need opportunities.
By the way, I see people in the chat saying stuff to me. I see JB Mohorn. He says, could never be a negotiator for Texas. I'm just trying to get people paid. Don't worry about it. It's not your money, JB. I just want to see people get paid. Like, you wouldn't want me to negotiate for you, JB, and say, hey, man, he's been working really hard. And you know what? He's been employee of the month, for the last 6 months. I'm not saying pay him what this person's paying. I'm just saying pay him a little bit more. You're going to say, man, don't do that to Staples, man. Staples we cannot have that here at Staples. Like, calm down. We all want people to get paid. It's not our money. It's
Christmas season. We want good tidings for everybody.
You know what? A man that gets 7 figures? Like, what is that? Like, come on, JB. Come on. All right, get coordinators. The other 2, Pete K, and then Jeff Banks. What would Santa Catch give each one of these guys in Christmas season? I think Banks is harder, but I think PK is easier.
No, Banks is not harder. Banks, I want to give a lot of things to Banks. Like another NFL special teams coordinator to help him. PK, PK just needs All PK needs is some defensive tackles in the portal for next year. He's good. What do you give the man that has everything? He's good.
Mm-hmm.
And he got a test on Saturday. I think deep down, like we said it before, I think deep down they will really like that Klubnik could pressure them a little bit without it being too pressurized, that they got a little something. He served them up a little two-piece, but it didn't come at the cost of anything even remotely close to a loss. It was like, oh, okay, in a 2-score game, they kept us on our toes. That I think you're going to want that when that big 4-quarter 50-50 game pops up. Texas is, how many of those games do we think they've really played this year?
A 50-50 game?
Like a game that really in the fourth quarter was in doubt. Because I don't even look at the A&M game as like that. I know they had the goal line stand, and for about 5 seconds, there was a little bit of pressure, but they're not playing teams that are playing them off their feet. Vanderbilt ends up being a 7-point game, but that's a penalty away from being a 17-point game. And it felt like that more than it felt like a one-possession game.
Yeah, Vandy's the only one I can think of, Catch, because Texas only scored 6 points in the second half.
Yeah.
So, maybe that was the only one where you looked at and you said, if they can get their offense going, maybe they have a shot. This defense is so good. To your point, it's not a lot though. They have most of these games going in the fourth quarter outside of Georgia. You've kind of felt like Texas has had this thing kind of in hand and will probably have this thing kind of wrapped up.
That's why I think the Clemson game it sounds patronizing. It's like, oh, Clemson, their little football team was good for Texas this weekend. I'm not trying to pat them on the head. I'm really not. But for Texas, it was, other than the injuries, everything about Saturday I thought was, something that more good can come out of than bad. I think the most important thing was the offense felt like it could do some things again. And for the last few weeks, it hasn't. And I think, the defense, again, it's like, if that's as bad as it's going to get on a night when a really super talented guy is dealing, I think you'll be okay with that. I think that, you're going to give up when a guy's that good and he's feeling it a little bit, you're going to give up a little something.
Yeah.
They weren't getting gashed though. They gave up the one score at the beginning of the game, and then they kind of put it on lockdown until the game was over. And then once the game was kind of over, they gave up some yards and some points, but I feel like there just really wasn't a lot to nitpick. And that's why if you're a Texas fan, you show up today, you just feel really good about, I think, the overall performance on Saturday. That was, I think all of the teams that won at home on Saturday will feel like going into their next game that they're playing the kind of football they want to play going into those games. I think Ohio State will feel like that's just what they needed before they play Oregon. And I think Notre Dame and Penn State will probably feel the same way, that, that those games marked their identities to a certain extent. Now, will that work against a Georgia? I mean, we'll see with regards to both a Notre Dame and a Penn State, but I watched Texas beat Clemson and I thought, well, that'll do against Arizona State. That's exactly how Sark wants it to look. He wants to be real balanced and then get to the fourth quarter and then just take their heart out with the run game. And that's what they did against Clemson. It's what they probably should have done against Clemson. So mission accomplished, but I think there's no reason to think that they shouldn't be able to do that again against Arizona State. And
the thing is, Catch, I got to give Sark credit for something. Most coaches want to take the credit when things go well. And so for Sark to say Quinn audibled out of the touchdown runs. I mean, that takes a lot. That's like, I called the play and my QB didn't like it. And so he called something else and it was way better than the play that I had planned, right? And so to be able to admit that, I think says a lot. And I think it also answers the question when people have asked for weeks, well, why doesn't Arch play? And why is he not playing more? I think when you look at Quinn's ability to operate Sark's offense and to do things like that and be able to say, okay, I'm going to audible out and this is what it is. And of course, we see a healthy Quinn, the throws that he can make. Like, I think that answers the question for anybody that questioned it. Sometimes it's the little things that Sark is looking at. I think Quinn's ability to operate his offense and then to have that symmetry and that chemistry and that trust within each other, that's the reason why he's like, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about. This is my dude. And I think you saw that on Saturday, kind of the fruits of that Quinn operates it not only he's able to do it from a physical standpoint, but mentally basically doing all the things that Sark wants and would want his quarterback to do.
Yeah, I mean, now do it again and again and again 3 more times, and I think that you're probably showered with confetti of your school colors. So, yeah. I think that my continued thing with Quinn is I don't need him to be great more. I need him to be terrible less. So. And I think we saw that on Saturday, even when they weren't using him in high volume, his numbers were perfectly fine. I'd like for the passing game to be better, but I don't think that was a Quinn thing on Saturday. That's just how the reps kind of broke out when it was all said and done. I think it ended up being 48 runs to 24 passes when it was all said and done, which is even more. I mean, that's two out of every 3 plays is a run play. I think Sark would tell you that if he knew he was getting that 3 more games in a row, he'd probably feel real good about winning those games if they were running the ball to that extent every game they play the rest of the way. What's your biggest nitpick from Saturday, if there is one? What's your very quiet hot take that you haven't even said out loud to anybody else?
It has probably nothing to do with the football game itself. Let me think about the football game itself. Because I got something else outside of that. But as far as the game itself, I don't know if I have a nitpick, Catch. I really don't. I
have one.
Okay, what do you have?
It's because it goes back to you wanted me to give, like, what would I give Jeff Banks? Like,
Hunter.
just, man, everything. The only kickoff return was one that everybody in the stadium knew shouldn't have taken place. Yeah. So Matthew Golden, what are you doing? What are you 6 yards deep? Like, what conversations are taking place that in the middle of all of that, Matthew Golden was like, bet it's on. They told me I could go. And then, I don't really have a problem. I love Silas. I do. But why does it feel like why do we all need anxiety medicine every time?
Now that is true.
Every time he's trying to just catch a punt, it's not his fault all the time, but it just feels like, why is he always lunging? Why is the ball briefly on the ground? Why is one of his guys hitting him? Like, why is the return game something that just isn't fun? A year ago, lots of fun. Every time Xavier Worthy touched the ball on a return, it was like, oh, he might go. This year, I don't know what the least anxious part of special teams is. It might actually be Michael Kern, though, because say what you want to about Michael Kern. By God, you know what you're getting every single time he kicks that ball. It's going to be like 39, 40. was 42 yards the other night. Like, it's not going to get returned. It's going to be in kind of a window. I know nothing when Bert Auburn steps on the field. I know nothing when the Longhorns are on a return. In a weird way, Michael Kern is the most dependable thing about that Texas special teams unit, and it ranks among the worst in the country, Anwar, in terms of net punting. So I don't know. I don't know what to say other than that group could be better.
Banks has been on it for the past few years. From a special teams perspective, this is not his best work. And I like Jeff Banks.
I don't even put that on him all the way. It's just
the guys that they have.
Teams coordinator. So,
like, I'm sure. Look, I am sure. There's no thing in my mind that thinks Jeff Banks is like, man, I ain't coaching special teams this week, man. Let me see what's on Netflix. Like, I am sure he has situational conversations with people to say, hey, I want you to do this under these circumstances, and you can do this. But there is this thing sometimes, like when you say the punt return, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. You mentioned everything except running backwards, which that has happened before as well. So there is some things where that's got to get better next year for sure. There's not much you can do in season. Clearly, they got a Utah punter, but that you're right. I would give Banks some little bit more of what they had last year as far as reliability. Now, here's the best thing I would say, Catch, is from like they don't get gashed on punt returns or kickoff returns. So from a defensive standpoint, they do good as far as that's concerned. You just don't see guys, they're good at tackling, they're good at attacking the ball, all those kind of things, especially on punts. But I'm with you. I would give you a little bit more. All right.
Again, it could be better is all I'm saying. And they would say the same. They don't say, well, we want to be one of the worst from an efficiency standpoint. We want to be one of the worst special teams in the country. That's not what they're aiming for. It's just crazy to me that because I think you make a real good point on where it's not like they're losing special teams. They're just not winning special teams. It's just as you get a little, now they got 3 games left to win a national championship. And it feels like to win all 3, there will at least be a game that's in there that it's like, well, were you on it in all 3 phases? We were that week. Maybe you don't need to do it in all 3 of the rest of these games, but it feels like maybe if you get Georgia a 3rd time, or if you get Oregon on a neutral field in Dallas, like maybe that's the week where you don't want to play with one arm tied behind your back. And they're this close and they haven't been good yet. The one thing is, like, I've had people go, well, you know what? Say what you want to about, well, they should have done this with a punter and grad transfer and all that. It hasn't cost Texas a game. It's like, well, you're right. I don't know that we go back to either of those Georgia games and go, oh, they'd only been better at punter. They'd have won that SEC championship. I mean, it wasn't quite like that. So, but if they could ever get good, we're at a point now on where if they have a breakout game on special teams in a good way, it's going to come in a massive stage against an opponent where like the outcome really matters. It just has to happen.
Yeah. All right, Catch, before we go, can I do one more thing?
Yes.
All right. We love Rogue Shop, right?
Yes.
And Rogue relaxes us. Can I give some Rogue gummies out to some people? Some people who really need Rogue gummies. And we'll take Oscar's super chat here, and then we'll get back to here. Oscar comes in. I ran into Jeff Banks of Poland and his wife in the lobby of the JW Marriott, and I fist pumped him and said, "Great game. I regret it. I should have gave him a piece of my mind."
Oscar.
Oscar. Like, you would have really been like, yo.
What the hell is Matthew Golden doing?
You would have really done that with him and his girl. Come on out.
Hey, man, careful. Like,
I think Pole Assassin would whoop Oscar's ass.
I think Pole Assassin whooped a lot of people's ass. Like, I think that she is about protecting her man. She is as ride or die as it gets. We should all be so lucky. And I don't know that you want to be rolling up on Jeff Banks at the hotel like that. Just FYI.
I think she may carry a shank with her, man. Like she is about that business. Don't let her looks fool you. Like, I think she might whoop you.
She is not trying to get rolled up on at the Marriott. So careful. I'm saying.
Dude, don't let those good looks fool you. Don't let those good looks fool you. She will whoop your ass. Come F around and find out. Bryson says the fake punt Georgia had without their starting punter and us not expecting it at all at the top of all the special teams blunders list.
Bryson, I don't know what you're talking about. Steve Sarkisian told us afterwards that they felt like they dealt with that perfectly fine.
I said sarcasm there. Was that sarcasm?
I mean, no, it was like a deadpan.
Okay.
You know? It was like Jim from The Office.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I like Jim.
You know, it was more Jim from The Office.
All right, can I start hanging out some road gummies?
Yes.
My first road gummy catch is people who are tripping over the mariachi band at the Texas game. Gotta let that go.
Why are people tripping about the mariachi band at the Texas game?
Oh, you haven't seen this catch?
No.
Oh, there's a 4-page thread on Orange Buds. Del Conte responded to it. There was like hundreds of responses. People were, so there've been some people, there was a reporter who tweeted about it as well. Some people have complained that having the mariachi band deflated the environment in the stadium. Oh, yes. What? Yes, catch. I promise you. There's some people who have alleged that when they've gone to like the pause and the break, that the mariachi band killed the environment in the stadium.
Man, every time, all I've ever known are mariachi bands to bring the heat, to bring the good times.
Dude, it is, if you're there, catch, it's not a bad thing. I thought it was kind of cool. You know, I've seen it every week, but they felt, some people were saying like, oh, the timing was just not right for that. And Del Conte, he's like, if you start saying something that's bad, like Del Conte can't let that go. Like he's like, if someone's like the bathrooms ain't working, Del Conte's like, oh man, we'll get right on that.
I have no further comment on War.
This guy took down his post catch. It had Del Conte's thing had 1.7 thousand likes on it. Oh, no, I'm gonna show,
I went out of my way to not click on that. Actually, I can see it.
This was over the weekend. Like the guy took it down because he got totally killed. But yeah, it was bad. So there's been people who have complained about the mariachi band. I'm just saying. Can I give you a road gummy?
Yes.
Chill out. That's one. All right. I got two more. You ready?
Yes.
The next time Steve Sarkisian and I have a back and forth, because it probably will happen again, everybody needs to take a rogue gummy for that one. You just got to know you live in a world where you have a coach who every once in a while is going to be on edge. Every once in a while, he just ain't going to be feeling it. Every once in a while, he's just going to snap. And when that happens, I don't need people acting like they got to protect him. I don't need people acting like, oh my God, you made our coach upset. Ask better questions. Why are you trying to attack our coach by getting him to say nice things about Quinn Ewers? I can't believe you, Anwar. Chill out. Relax. Take a rogue gummy. Literally, can't believe you're trying to get our coach to say nice things about our quarterback. Some can't have it. Take a rogue gummy. 2, 3. Number 3. Gonna give a rogue gummy. Last one. Y'all just need to let Travis Hunter live and leave him and his girl alone. Y'all got to take a rogue gummy for that. Every day I see something about Travis Hunter's girl. Somebody's going off about it, showing old videos and stuff. Man, you young people, you got to remember when you were in that age, even if something was bad for you, ain't nobody can talk you out of it. You were destined to go down that road, and you couldn't, nobody can tell you nothing. You're like, I mean, I know she's a stripper, but I'm pretty sure she's into me. Like, no one can tell you. And so at the end of the day, y'all leave Travis Hunter alone. If that's what he wants to do, let him live his life. I'm the king of bad relationships and failed relationships. You just got to let somebody go through it. Take a rogue gummy. If you today decide you want to interject on Travis Hunter's fiance. Those are my 3 rogues. That's it. It's Santa.
That was Santa.
By the way, yeah. By the way, I noticed your wrapping paper in the background. You've been doing some work.
Yeah, I'm the only one. I got bubble wrap behind me too. Like I feel like my office has just turned into a dumping ground for unwrapped presents.
It's your workshop, right?
Santa's workshop. That's right.
Yeah. Santa's workshop is going. I like it. I like Santa's workshop.
Well, let's wrap this bad boy up because I've got House Divided coming up in a couple of hours. We've got Football with Friends later on in the day. And then, guys, we're taking a few days off.
Yeah.
Don't show up on Christmas Day. It's like, where's my Longhorn? You know where your Longhorn stuff is. It's on a previous video that you didn't watch from last week that you need to watch and catch up on.
Yeah, hold on. Last thing, Anwar, during the post game of Texas winning the Natty, so coach, will Arch be the starter if Quinn comes back than Doug? He might be in a good enough mood at that point to let it ride. But the thing is, here's the reason why I wouldn't do that. Because ain't none of these fools in this chat are going to get my back if I do that, Catch. I can do that.
Turn on me in a heartbeat.
What? They would just act like, I cannot believe you upset a grown man.
Every pearl in town would be clutched.
Oh, yeah. 100%. So that's why no. What are you going to say?
No, I was just say audible gasps from the pearl clutching. Anwar Richardson. Oh, cannot believe you.
Hacks. That's why I hate OB. That's why I go to this other website because they're so much better than you guys. That's why I watch these other shows. I don't know. The checks are clearing. All right, that's it, Catch. I had to let some things off.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you did. We all need to be able to do that. Look, for myself, for Anwar, who's now free of angst.
Yes.
The Rogue Shop that help us get there with the gummies
Thank you,
today.
Stephanie.
Guys, we will see you next week, obviously, but we'll see you throughout later in the week. We'll have a modcast on Thursday. We'll do some things, but an abbreviated schedule, but definitely House Divided in a couple of hours. Until then, you guys get out and get some shopping done. We'll see you soon.